Hold on, wait a minute. The writing on the side? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to John Dudley Speaks. I'm your host, the John Father. I don't know, there's something there. Snoop Dogg, aka Snoop Doggy Dogg, aka Snoop Lion, aka Snoop Dogg, is a legend in every sense of the word. Not just in music, as he's been a generational icon for at least 3 decades. His pop culture status never waning due to his timeless meme-like appeal to Gen X, Millennials, and even Gen Z. And that's with good reason. He's a fabulous entertainer. Discovered by Warren G and Dr. Dre, Snoop appeared on Dr. Dre's single Deep Cover in 1992 and never looked back, popping up on multiple tracks across Dr. Dre's widely lauded The Chronic. His debut record Doggy Style released the very next year with smash hits like Who Am I, What's My Name, Gin and Juice, and Ain't No Fun, among killer throwback cuts like Lottie Dottie. And it's aged like a fine wine, championing a new era of West Coast gangster rap that is still inspirational in artists like YG, Schoolboy Q, Kendrick Lamar, and Vince Staples, who are all carrying the torch for over a decade now. However, it should be noted that Snoop faced first-degree murder charges that led to his arrest in 1995, and eventually he beat the case and was acquitted in February 1996. And this should be looked at as a foundational moment of his music career, leading to his slightly shaky sophomore effort, The DoggFather, which ditched the gangster rap tropes to a diminished effect. The late 90s into the turn of the millennium was an interesting time for Snoop, with high highs and low lows leading him into the arms of the Neptunes, who assisted him in the production of Pay the Cost to Be the Boss and R&G The Masterpiece. And those projects, as well as the Blue Carpet Treatment and Ego Trippin', re-established Snoop as a force on the Billboard charts. But as he segued into the 2010s, he admirably tinkered with funk, reggae, and even gospel, all the mixed results. But these last few years, Snoop has been in his gangster rap bag again, and even performed at the Super Bowl in 2022, taking a victory lap to celebrate the legacy that he's provided to the genre, which continues on his latest, Missionary, which is a spiritual sequel to his debut record, and dare I say it, Snoop proves that nostalgia can go a really long way.
Roll it up, light it up.
Longtime friend and fellow icon Dr. Dre is handling the primary production on this project, and this is the first time that Dre's produced on a solo Snoop record since 2000's The Last Meal, so he really makes the most of it. The soulful G-Funk feels a tad more naturalistic and live than most Dr. Dre production stylings, with Shangri-La delivering a swell of grand strings and double-time percussive strokes, and percussion proves to be a highlight all over this palette, especially on Outta Da Blue, where it pairs extremely well with the repetitive, groovy, propulsive sample of Watermelon Fantasy, showing that Dre and Dem joints can still exploit pockets of the gangster rap sound that haven't been tackled yet. And that's a huge plus of Dre's mix of sampling and intensity that extends it to a massive highlight on this record, Gunz N Smoke, leveraging an Anderson .Paak-like pop-funk foundation, coasting off the back of slick nods to gangster rap lore in its composition. I also love how piercing the synths are on Hard Knocks, even if the mix is a little overblown and lopsided on certain elements, which is a complaint that I unfortunately have for most of this record, especially on the heavily sampled Last Dance for Mary Jane, which features a Tom Petty hook in its center, but it feels disjointed and sloppily implemented. Just like the Police sample on Another Part of Me that comes off as flat and lazy. But when you have glistening G-Funk production like on Gangsta Pose and Sticky Situation, you can enjoy how this project enlivens Snoop's aesthetics for the first time in decades. And that's in spite of shortcomings in mixing and imagination. The last time I found Snoop's writing to be interesting was on 2015's Bush, and that was because he attempted something that was a little new to him, and pushed his song structures into a different direction. Here, I feel like he slips back into a usual rhythm, and he's not as compelled as much to make changes, which is okay in some regard because this is meant to be a nostalgic project. However, Dre and Snoop really lean on interpolations like a crutch. Wasn't really a fan of the Last Dance for Mary Jane storytelling, as it was something that Killer Mike did earlier this year to a much better effect. Hard Knocks leans on a random interpolation of Another Brick in the Wall, and I would be ecstatic about it if it wasn't solely existing for the bait, but it just rings hollow as a diversion in the songwriting. Thank You is the worst example of this interpolation energy, using the Sly and the Family Stone hook as the main hook, as well as a prominent interpolation of The Watcher. But again, I don't think Snoop adds anything here that we haven't heard before from him. Now, on the other hand, Snoop's bravado and wordplay is still on a high level, where he's able to project earned confidence on Shangri-La, and the flexing of riches on Outta Da Blue and Hard Knocks. The storytelling from 50 Cent, Eminem, and Snoop himself on Gunz N Smoke is stellar, adding some muscularity to the rags to riches tropes. So by the time that we reach the Negotiator, we can enjoy the victory lap that Snoop's taking while also not taking it too seriously, and respecting the hustle that he continuously brings. Boom. Snoop isn't a stranger to sounding slick, cool, calm, and collected on a record, and I actually thought BODR and From the Streets to the Sweets were the best he's sounded on a record in a long time, at least in terms of technical delivery and rapping. And here Snoop builds on that success, it's just that sometimes he and the features get in the way of that. The core Aftermath trio of 50 Cent, Dre, and Eminem is admittedly fantastic across this record, but I found the R&B laced work to be pretty formulaic and boring. Jhené Aiko's voice is silky smooth, but it's a hook that's so airy and light that it's forgettable. The inclusions of BJ the Chicago Kid and Method Man are frustratingly dull and add little to the overall ambiance of the record. And then there's Jelly Roll, which, I mean, he's fine, but I feel like the execution is really lacking when it comes to how it coalesces to the rest of the track. But while I do have a problem with Snoop on his intensity and energy on tracks like Gorgeous and Fire, he impressively makes up for it with his flows on Shangri-La, Outta Da Blue, and Hard Knocks, where he's still just as slippery and wavy as he was during the Pharrell era. Pairing that with his clear excitement to work with Dre on production, and it sounds like Snoop's having a lot of fun again, which adds to the overall listening experience.
Keep moving on.
At 46 minutes and 16 tracks, this is a comparatively much leaner Snoop Dogg record, a lot more in line with Bush, From the Streets to the Sweets, and even Doggy Style to an extent. But then again, that's on a comparative basis, so that doesn't exonerate this record from Snoop's usual problems with pacing and sequencing. I think there's a 10-track record in here that's on the same level as No Limit Top Dog, but there isn't really much of an effort to cut down the filler. So there's stretches that really feel unnecessary and not the same kind of punch of Hard Knocks and Out of the Blue. However, he is able to steer back into a familiar pocket by the end that's just as interesting and entertaining as his best material, so even if it does lose precision along the way, it's still incredibly enjoyable.
Snoop, Snoop, Snoop. Got the city on my back, nigga, Eastside Savages. Pistol grip pump on my lap, automatic shit. Endo Smoke.
Missionary is the best album from Snoop Dogg in a long time, and it's exciting to see him back on the same wavelength as Dr. Dre, adding some new spins on the gangsta rap formula while oozing personality on some hard-hitting production. But hey, that's just my perspective. If you're a Snoop Dogg fan, this one's a really good time. And if you've been pining over a 90s rap reunion with tons of nostalgia and a legendary rapper having a blast, you gotta check this one out. Alright, that's all I got. Bye!